resource, it dissolves some of the materials under the earth, brings back up to the surface a solution that contains the targeted mineral, but also calcinate precipitates out. So the CO2 actually gets sequestered in the course of extracting the mineral. Now, why is that a carbon play? Well, we can take the CO2 from a local source of fossil-based CO2 from a power plant or from an industrial process, and essentially sequester it long term in a solid substance in calcinate. That project's in Alberta, and hopefully will see the light of day before too long. The third project, and this is also a Canadian project, is an extension of the work that's been done in the forestry sector, where people are looking at the CO2 sequestered in harvested wood products. The project here is taking waste straw from agricultural activities, primarily wheat, and conditioning the straw and then putting it into a medium or high density a medium or high density board. The argument is that the CO2 is taken out of the atmosphere through photosynthesis in the process of growing the wheat. The straw, rather than being burned or left to decompose on the land, is then sequestered in a construction material, and that construction material is long-lived. Can last for more than 100 years if you don't burn it, that is. So there, the carbon play is real, and the numbers are quite dramatic for a $500 million investment in a large manufacturing facility. You're capable of sequestering upwards of 1 million to 1,250,000 tons of CO2 per year. So those are three live projects. They're real. They're struggling, as most projects in various parts of the world are, with sort of hangovers, project finance hangovers from the latest banking crisis. But they're live, and the carbon finance elements are playing an important role in incentivizing the projects. Now, for the Ag Fiber project, my client there is a technology provider. With the mining project, as I mentioned, the client is the mineral rights holder, and for the RED project, my client is actually a subnational government. So let me move on then to the slides now. Let me see if I get this right. Yes, okay. My take on the topic is slightly different. What I want to focus on with you is how we go about creating the value to create the carbon opportunity. And one way of thinking about it is that what you're trying to do is to monetize environmental attributes. And in this case, the environmental attributes are linked to climate change mitigation. There are a whole host of ways of looking at environmental attributes and incentivizing them, from ecosystem services. There's a large variety of different approaches there. But here what we're really talking about are those environmental attributes of an activity or a product that relate to climate change mitigation. And that, folks, is all about reducing the amount of greenhouse gases that are released into the atmosphere, or enhancing the existing sinks that take those greenhouse gases out of the atmosphere. And what we're looking at are ways for incentivizing those activities and the production of those products. So we're going through this presentation, we'll focus on two approaches. Essentially, one is of the use of carbon credits. It should be IT, not TI. And then some of the programs that are in existence that recognize the value in products that are linked into this context. And the two examples that I'm going to use going through the presentation are electricity generated from renewable sources, and wood pellets, a topic close to my heart in BC. So next Okay, the context is a key factor. This is not a homogeneous, simple context. There are a bewildering number of contexts in which projects will be situated. And until we get much further buy-in from a wide variety of actors in the international context, this diversity of approach is going to continue. Indeed, it's likely that if the Copenhagen Accord approach to things prevails in the international talks, that diversity will be the characteristic of the way forward rather than it being the other way around. So it really is important to figure out how you fit into things. And when it comes to carbon credits, the essential distinction is between voluntary markets and compliance markets. Now, a project most oftentimes located anywhere will have a choice between a compliance market or a voluntary market. And at the front end, you need to decide which approach you're going to take. Now, in some jurisdictions, there are no compliance regimes, so you're not really looking at a compliance opportunity. But for example, in Alberta right now, you can, when you look at a renewable energy project, decide whether or not you're going to do a carbon credit play that plays into the voluntary market or one that plays into the Alberta offset system. So where you are locating your project will determine what opportunities you have. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the fact that by virtue of Alberta being a WECC member, this is a Western North American-wide electricity arrangement. You can generate renewable electricity in Alberta and have that project registered with the W-Regis people to produce renewable energy certificates that can be sold in the United States. So you can choose between that kind of renewable energy project with the incentive of the, earning the funding that comes from a REC, or you can do a carbon credit project, either an Alberta grade offset project or a voluntary sector VCS project. So back to the first principles. My clients tend to be the people who are putting the projects together, and the issue there is who gets the incentive at the outset. Who is entitled to receive the incentive? And essentially, there are two distinct approaches. The carbon credit approach is much more flexible than the product standard approach. So with carbon credits, the people who are responsible for putting the project together, depending on what system you're working with, they're either project proponents or project participants or developers, but essentially it's the people who are responsible for putting the project together and to a degree own the opportunity, who have the right to decide who the first owners of the credits will be. It does not have to be the project vehicle. Let me say that again. It does not have to be the project vehicle. It can be any one of the participants, and it's possible for all of the participants to agree to a particular distribution. Now, it's a negotiation, so it's going to come down to assessment of need and entitlement. How important is your contribution to the project, and are there barriers to the project going forward that need to be massaged by you receiving this particular incentive more than somebody else? Now, the renewable energy certificates, remember, those are pieces of paper used in compliance regimes, primarily in the U.S. now, from a North American perspective, that can be used by a generator of power who's obligated to have a minimum percentage of the power that they deliver to a grid comprised of renewables, and they're called renewable portfolio standards. In most instances, it's the generator of the electricity that is the regulated party, but in some cases, it's the